This is a mini lesson on the spiritual world. So, we dive deeper into the different layers of the spiritual world as we go upon our soul growth and our spiritual journey. As you begin to tune in and open up your intuitive channel and your clairs, you'll begin to notice that while your human body form is here in the 3D experience here on plane three, whatever you want to call it, the third dimension here. As your consciousness begins to connect and tap back into your soul essence, which resides within the body temple. But then when you open up your intuitive channel, you begin connecting with these higher states of consciousness and these other planes or levels of existence. So, what really separates the different planes of existence is really just so what I want you to know is that all of this is happening now. But for most of us, before we become awake to our spiritual soul self, we're not tuning in to the other frequencies. So, for many people, really what most are just tuning into are what's happening here in the 3D. So on the third plane, three, the density of animals and humans. Many people are obviously awake to plane two, which is the trees, the plants, elementals, and lastly, Earth. Earth is layer one, plane one. So most of us, most humans are attuning into right here. But again, all of these planes are always happening at any given time in the here, right now. And it's only when we begin to open up that intuitive channel and tap into our clairs and tap into these higher states of consciousness do we begin to open up and realize that there are these other planes of existence, these other dimensions. And the only thing separating all of these really is how fast atoms are vibrating. So when atoms are vibrating at a certain frequency, at a slower frequency, that's when our human senses can pick up on them. So that's why we can pick up on third plane and then things that are vibrating at a slower or lower frequency, like trees and rocks and earth. We can tune into that because it's at a slow enough frequency for the human eye to pick up. The reason why we don't just come into this earth already, perhaps already open to these other layers of frequency, is they're happening at a higher vibration, technically too fast for the human eye to detect, but that doesn't mean that they're not there. Just like how we know sound and light go at certain speeds where the human eye can't detect it, but we know that there's sound waves happening right now at such a frequency that you can hear them, so you can pick them up, but you can't see them. And we also know that at certain frequencies of sound, it's at such a frequency that the human ear can't hear it, but a dog can. And that doesn't mean that the frequency is not real. It just means that my ears aren't set. The human ear isn't set to hear that frequency. And I guess all I'm trying to say is to help our ego understand, just because right now, maybe your ego may or may not be as aware of these other states of consciousness, that doesn't mean they don't exist. And the more you continue to develop your intuitive practice, develop your intuition, the more you remove, again, intuition is not only something that we tap into and we remember, but the biggest block is these layers of fog that we have that's capping our third eye, that's capping our crown chakra, that's making it difficult to sense these higher states of consciousness because of some of the blocks, because of some of the subconscious conditioning that we've gotten. So as you heal and clear more of that, again, you realize you can begin to tune into those states and to these other planes of existence. So planes of existence was coined by Vianna Stibal. She is the founder of Thetahealing, which is the form of subconscious reprogramming that I use. And I really like how she just lays out these different layers of consciousness or these layers of planes of existence. So as mentioned, we're in the third plane here. Now, when you tap into fourth plane energy, that's when you begin to tap into spirits and entities. So that's going to be that when we pass, we go to the fourth plane. The fourth plane is really any spirit guides. And for some, we are working towards getting to be more enlightened beings and raising our frequency to such that we can get to the fifth plane of existence, but not all guides are in the fifth plane of existence. So recently passed loved ones, souls that are maybe in the in between, deciding where to go or what to go next, are happening in that fourth plane, as well as lower vibrational spirit beings and entities can also reside in the fourth plane. Oftentimes, if you're going to see like a psychic or a medium, they will often be tapping into the fourth and fifth plane. Okay, so they could be tapping into recently passed loved ones or loved ones on the fourth plane, guides from the fourth plane. And I don't want to imply that any entity or guide from the fourth plane is bad, but they can be whatever. They can be neutral, they could be good, they could be bad. So you always want to make sure that whoever you're going to for a reading, many of them say an intentional prayer before they open a reading to, only channel like guides who are in light. Um, but anyways, I just want you to know there's this fourth plane that we can be tapping into. Then there's the fifth plane of existence. So as I mentioned, this is where when I'm doing an Akashic soul reading or an Akashic soul healing with someone, I am going directly to the fifth plane. It's just how I was trained, and also it's in my DNA and part of what I bring as a gift from all my past lives and previous incarnations and future incarnations is this ability that I have to tap into the fifth plane because I am connecting with the Akashic records or the Akashic library as it's here. So at a higher plane of existence, we have the sixth plane. So all that means is we keep going up is faster moving energy particles or atoms or particles, whatever we want to call it. So at the sixth plane of existence, that is where the energetic blueprint, the Akashic records are stored and held. And everything and everyone has its own Akashic records. And then we have a collective Akashic records. It's portals within portals within portals within portals. So the Akashic Library is held there, as well as, so because it's part of the Akashic Library, the laws of the universe. So the universal spiritual laws are also held there, like absolute truths that our world exists within, like the law of attraction, the law of polarity, etc. So all of that is sixth plane. And the fifth plane, masters, teachers, and loved ones. So the fifth plane, where, I mean, they call it angelic realm, but it's where the highest, high vibrational ascended light beings reside on the fifth plane. And they are the guardians of the records. Specifically, Archangel Metatron, he is the main guardian of all the records. However, with that said, Archangel Michael needs help, or Archangel Metatron needs help. So while he is the main gatekeeper, there are a lot of ascended masters, teachers, loved ones. It's also where our galactic light being team and guides reside. So that's all on the fifth plane. So I appreciate it because when I'm doing an Akashic Records reading, then I am primarily only tapping into the fifth plane. Now, once I have the records open, it can also be that sometimes a being from the fourth plane, because I'm opening up that portal, this is where I would say I personally, as I'm recording this right now, have not tuned in and honed to my mediumship abilities, where I can kind of readily tap into and access, let's say, recently passed or past loved ones from this incarnation. But sometimes they will enter a reading when I'm doing a soul reading, connecting to your higher self and your collective high vibe team. And what I know is at least that if someone is entering during a soul reading, I know that they've kind of had to make it through the gates of like the angelic team. Like your angelic team almost basically has to give that being an okay to enter and get close to the soul reading. So again, I feel more comfortable with the way that I've been trained, that if perhaps a loved one does come through, I know that it's of the highest vibration and light because of the portal that I've opened through the Akashic records through the fifth realm. Okay, so fourth plane, fifth plane, sixth plane. Now, the highest plane of existence is tapping into the seventh plane, which is where the creator divine one source energy resides. When you begin to channel and tap into the seventh plane of existence, and again, it's like in meditation, you can connect to each of these states. When I'm in seventh plane energy, that feels like you won't feel any angels or other guides on that plane, because the seventh plane of existence, where the creator divine one source is, it feels like to us, the best way us in our ego human form can describe it is it just feels like you are being enveloped with unconditional love. And I won't be noticing other light beings and angels surrounding me when I am tapped in at the very top to that creator source energy. It just feels like an envelopment of unconditional love. Now, I will say personally, so we can also access that creator type energy during a soul reading when we're into the Akashic records, because that seventh plane is right there. So when I'm in the Akashic records, I can either ask a question for myself or for a client from the perspective of their collective guide team. We can also go directly to source and ask for source perspective, and we might hear different perspectives. So there can be a slight difference in what we hear if we're going directly to source for to receive an answer, or if I'm just asking your collective team as a whole, which is what I often do so that I can get the greatest and highest perspective. Now, Vianna Stibal, she is the founder of Thetahealing. So when I specifically use when I'm using the Theta healing technique to clear and shift subconscious beliefs, one, I have the Akashic records open, so your collective is also present for the healing to support the greatest and highest good. But also I am directly going to source to witness the healing come through. So it's one of my favorite modalities to use. I love pairing the Theta healing technique with the element and essence of the Akashic records as well, and I'll combine them both. If you are curious in learning more about all of this, there's a couple ways I would suggest. One, continuing to develop and work on your own intuitive practice, continuing to tune into your own spiritual soul essence and the truth that you are a soul having a human experience. So in the 3D tangible, I recommend going to the lesson where I talk about just spiritual practices that you can incorporate in your life, or going to the intuition section and beginning your journey there. Now, when you really want to open up to all of these levels, I recommend Higher Self Awakening, my intuitive development program for ambitious women. In Higher Self Awakening, we begin to clear these blocks, this fog that the human ego has put on your third eye, your crown chakra, due to either past negative experiences with your intuition, due to in the past, if you've ever been persecuted or harmed because you were using your intuition. Ultimately, the ego psyche then began to form this connection that my intuition must be bad. But that's not the case. In any of these circumstances that have happened previously, that was the soul learning lessons. It's not the fault of the intuition. And here on this plane, in this incarnation, the high vibrational light being teams want more women to be fully connected to their intuitive channel and to their soul self, uncapped, fully unleashed. And for that, we need to do the subconscious reprogramming and the healing of this life and previous lives. So if you want to go deeper, you can join me in Higher Self Awakening. And or I'm also happy to suggest my two mentors for if any individual is feeling tied to going deeper into the Akashic records. Excuse me, still getting over a cold. Um, my mentor for that is Amy Robeson. And then for the Theta Healing, where you dive more into planes of existence, but it's also the Theta Healing courses and certification program is also heavily focused on reprogramming the subconscious mind on all levels. And so for that, while the founder of Theta Healing is Vianna Stibal, my mentor that I learned through is Dr. Allison Snowden. And she actually had a near death experience happen to her when she was in her teens. And through that, though, it was part of her spiritual awakening. And so since then, she's completed all of the levels of Theta Healing, but then also all the certification levels. So I've also enjoyed learning from her. So feel free to ask me any questions if you have more, but I just want to open up your mind to the spiritual world to remember we are more than just our 3D existence.